Parsha Ki Tavo. I want to share with you a idea that really is a combination of this week and last week's Parsha that I heard from my Rosh Yeshiva. I think it's a incredibly important message for sustaining a successful marriage. It's really probably the most important message that we have to ensure a healthy marriage. And more than that, on a microcosmic level, we'll see that it refers to, this idea is important in terms of marriage, but on a macro level too, how it impacts on our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This week's parsha starts off, Parsha Ki Tavo el haaretz. It will be when you enter the land, Asher Hashem Elokecha nosen lecha, nachala, that God gives you as an inheritance, Yerishta v'yashavta ba, and you will possess it and dwell in it. And it talks about the mitzvah of the first fruits, the mitzvah of bikkurim. So it's interesting. You're about Torah, right? Last week's parsha, what was the name of the parsha? Ki Tavo la milchama, when you go out to war. It's not Parsha's Ki Tavo. This week is Parsha's Ki Tavo, when you come into the land. Okay? But there's one big difference. We have to understand this. Are the first words of our Parsha Ki Tavo el haaretz? What are the first words of the Parsha? V'haya ki tavo el haaretz. And it will be when you enter the land. Ki Tavo didn't start of V'haya ki tetzeh la milchama. It started of ki tetzeh la milchama. So why is it that here the Parsha begins with the word V'haya, whereas in last week's Parsha, it just says when you go out to war. It doesn't say V'haya ki te, and it will be when you go out to war. So obviously this word V'haya is very important to the message of what Ki Tavo is telling us. That's going to be the first question we understand. Why is it V'haya Ki Tavo? You could have left that word out. The message would have said Ki Tavo el haaretz, when you come into the land and you do the mitzvah bikkurim. Why do you have the V'haya Ki Tavo el haaretz? And whatever that message is, and clearly it wasn't needed for Ki Tavo, we just want to know what the word V'haya, and it will be, is teaching us. Something else that's in this week's parsha that I think needs to be gone through thoroughly is that in this week's parsha we're on the precipice, we're on the boundary of crossing over into Eretz Yisrael, right? And part of the process of crossing into Eretz Yisrael, we have the blessings and the curses, the brachos and the klalos. There's two mountains, Har Grizim and Har Eval. In fact, we know where those mountains are today. There is actually a sect known as the Shomronim. They follow certain aspects of the Torah, and the Torah should be what we call Torah Sheba'al Peh, they call it rabbinic law. They don't follow, but they actually have their own high priest. I think it's all in Har Grizim. There's a few thousand of them still left. But nevertheless, these two mountains, that some of the tribes went on one, some of the tribes went to the other, the Kohanim Levi were in the middle, and they gave different blessings and different curses that were given to the Jewish people. And this was an important process that was required upon entering into the land of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara says something astounding, because you look at the verses, it doesn't seem to make them. The Gemara ties every single one of these blessings and curses, the Gemara ties to the requirement and the prohibition of infidelity. Requirement that a person has to be in a committed relationship with his spouse, and the curse comes if you don't keep that commitment. So you go through them, and the Talmud navigates each one of these blessings, each one of these curses somehow ties to adultery, to the prohibition of infidelity. in and of itself, how it fits into the verses, that's a separate issue. But why is that an important message? There's 613 mitzvos. There's like Shabbos, Avodah Zorah. There's some, obviously, adultery is a serious prohibition. It's one of the 10 commandments. There's 9 other ones. And so why is it that this, entering into the land of Israel, you need to know the blessings and the curses that are associated with the violation of adultery. It's interesting why that would be something that's the message coming into the land. So, in last week's Parsha, there is a passage which is the primary passage about the laws of marriage. This is the Gemara in Kedushin. We have a whole tractate that discusses marriage and the intricacies and the details that are involved. And the passage that is primarily focused upon is in a verse in last week's Parsha. Let me read it to you. Ki yikach ish isha, if a man marries a woman, uba'allah, and is intimate with her, v'haya im lo simtza chen be'einav, and it will be that if she does not find favor in his eyes, ki matzah ba ervas davar, because he had found concerning her some type of immoral matter, the cause of law, then he is required to write for her sefer krisus, a bill of divorce, v'nasan b'yada, and he has to place it in her hand, v'shilcha mi beiso, and you have to send her out of his house. This is the verse that is broken up and grinded and back and forth, all the different details, because it contains 2 things in it: marriage and divorce. Right. Which I think also begs some explanation. Why are we tying marriage to divorce? The same verse that teaches us marriage is also teaching us divorce. I think that clearly the contrast there has come to teach us something.
Exit plan.
But yeah. So that's the joke that they used to say in yeshivas. In the tractates of the Masechtot, Gittin, the laws of divorce comes before the laws of marriage. They'd say that, Kodesh Baruch Hu is makdim b'fuah l'makah. He gives us the medicine before he gives us the punishment. But that's the joke. Anyway, but it's a real question. Why are the 2 being linked in the same verse? But look at the verse. I think this is just incredibly difficult. Ki yikach ish isha. So kicha is a lashon of acquiring. That means that there has to be some type of transactional element to the first stage of marriage, which we call, by the way we do marriage today, we combine everything together. All right? There's the ring, there's the chuppah, and immediately after we have the yichud room. It didn't, back in the day, if you look in the halacha and the way it used to be, it wasn't that way. There was what's called betrothal. It's not an engagement. Engagement is not a halachically recognized. Betrothal used to be that the woman is already considered an Eishes Ish, is married, but they used to give 12 months to prepare the wedding. And then 12 months later, then they did the second step, which was the chuppah, which according to Maimonides really is only one thing, is entering into the house of the husband. Witnesses saw her enter into the house of the husband. The chuppah, what we do under the canopy, actually what should happen if the rabbi is on his toes, the chassan should own the chuppah. Meaning whoever the wedding hall, it should be part of the plan that he's renting it for the evening, so that when she goes under the chuppah, she's considered having entered into the home, because that's the second step. So you have kiddushin, which is the ring, which we do. That's the Harat Mekudesh Asli. So that's the transactional piece of it. And they used to have 12 months later, they have to chuppah. We do it together, all right, for different reasons. Then you have it. So technically, the chuppah should be owned. That's why the Sfaradim, by the way, many have the custom that they take a talus that's owned by the Chatan, and they put the talus over the two of them, so like she's entering into his domain. They do that. I think the Sfaradim do it, the Yekas do it. I think there's a number of people. But that's the idea. She's entering into his domain. Yichud is going into a place where they can be intimate. Right? According to the Rambam, the main part of it is the Yichud. But it's like 3 steps, really. You have the Kiddushin, which is the Erusin, the betrothal. Then you have the Chuppah. And we follow up with the Yichud. That's the Rambam's opinion that they have to be in a place where they can be intimate technically. So that's the idea. It's all learned from this pasuk. Ki kach ish isha. That's the acquisition, transactional part. Ubala, and is intimate with her. So those are the 2 steps in the marriage process. The first step, she's already an Eshes Ish. She's not allowed to have relations with anybody else, but she's also not allowed to have relations with her husband yet until you do the second step, which is the chuppah, and you have the ketuvah, and you have the financial requirements the man has to have for the woman, that's the ketuvah that they read under the chuppah, that shows that he's taking financial responsibility, and so that's the step. But then it says like this, right? Now, he divorces her. What are the grounds for the divorce? Ervat davar, there was something immoral. The Talmud says means that she was not faithful. It was infidelity. If there's been infidelity, you're not allowed to stay together. The woman has, unless she was violated, God forbid, right? And then it's only a problem if it's a Kohen, which is a separate issue. But if she willfully had a relationship with another man, she is not allowed to stay married. He has to divorce her. She has to get a divorce. The question is like this. So that the pasuk could have said, if a man marries a woman, is intimate with her, and finds that she has been immoral, he has to give her a get. But there's a whole clause over there that seems to be for no purpose. Listen to these words. For haya, and it will be, ki im lo timtzachen be'enav, if she does not find favor in his eyes. So the simple understanding is because she went and had an affair, he has to divorce her. Then what do we have to say? It'll be if you don't find favor in his eyes. Even if she does find favor in his eyes, he's obligated to divorce her. Why? He's obligated to divorce her because she has been unfaithful. You have to divorce her. You're not allowed to stay married. What does we have to put his own feelings of the matter? And it'll be that if she does not find favor in his eyes, because matzah eres davar, he found her that she had done something immoral. You know, this whole segment over here, that she did not find favor in his eyes, could have been deleted completely, and the same meaning would have been there. So let's understand this, because this is a very important. This is the pasuk of marriage. What is it teaching us about marriage over here? So let's go through this again. We're asking, why is the parsha start of Parsha Ki Tavo la'aretz? Kiseitze doesn't start of Vahaya. The idea of the blessings and the curses that the Talmud, Reish Lakish and the Talmud learned, they all tie to that you have to be faithful, and that the person cannot have an adulterous relationship. There cannot be infidelity. And then in last week's parsha, we have, when it talks about the primary pasuk of marriage, it ties it to divorce, and in there it says that grounds for divorce, which is actually the obligation to divorce, is based on there being adultery in the marriage. But it prefaces it, ve'im lo simtzachen be'einav, if you don't find favor, if she does not find favor in your eyes, because ki could mean if, or because she committed adultery, then you have to divorce her. This whole idea of how she found favor in her eyes seems to be difficult to understand. So let's start defining a point about marriage, which I think is going to be, as I said, I think one of the most fundamental issues in a successful marriage, and perhaps why the rate of divorce today is so high. Let's start with the first question. Why does it start with the word v'haya? V'haya ki tavo el haaretz. And it will be when you come into the land. So the word v'haya actually is a very interesting word, because haya on its own, without the vav in front of it, what does haya mean? It was. Put the vav in front of it, v'haya makes it will be. Right? It's mahapech. It switches it from the past to the future. Right? The Gemara learns out.
Isn't the future is v'yeh?
What's that?
The future is v'yeh.
But so there's past perfect, and there's different forms of it. But v'haya means and it will be. It means we'll have to see. Maybe this will answer your question too. But the Talmud learns out that according to there are Tanaim in the Talmud that the Kriyat Shema has to be done in Hebrew. Should not do it in another language. Discussion. But how do we know it has to be done in language? Because it says, V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele. These words shall be. So the Talmud learns out V'hayu means V'havyatan yiyu. The way they were, that's the way they always have to be. It means it's defining. The word V'hayu means as it was. How was it? We got it when we got the Torah. It was in Hebrew. That's the way it always has to be. It means it has to be that way. It has to be in Hebrew because that's the way you got it. So somehow it's telling you using a word that contains in it the past and the future is saying that this is what has to be. So now we can understand. Actually, when it says "V'hayu ki tavo el haaretz," there is a haftacha here. There's a promise that you will return to the land. Meaning it's telling you this is going to happen. The Hashem is like promising us when you come. It's not just when you come into the land, but you should know this is definitively what's going to happen. You are going to come into the land. Now we understand why it's only written in the front of Ki Tavo, but it's not written in front of Ki Seitze. You don't definitively, there's always going to be war. We don't want to say there's always going to be war. So it doesn't say, V'haya ki teitze la milchama, because we can do without war. But you know what? You can't do without the land of Israel. V'haya ki tavo el haaretz, it'll be when you come into the land, means you are going to come into the land of Eretz Yisrael. V'haya ki tavo el haaretz, it's a haftacha, you will. Okay, that must be the idea. Why here? So we understand. Look at this. This is very difficult now. Ki yikach ish isha, a man takes a woman, takes a wife, ube'ala, and he's intimate with her. V'haya im lo timtzachein be'einav. Right, this clause, and it'll be that she will not find favor in his eyes, and because she committed adultery, and he will divorce her. Based on what we just explained right now, I mean, and it's going to be, that's what every marriage has to be? That makes no sense. Right? So listen to this. Im lo timtzachein be'einav is, the simple understanding we're saying is, she won't find favor in your eyes. Why is she not finding favor in your eyes? Because she did what? Because she committed adultery. Therefore, you have to divorce her. So we asked, you don't need to write that first clause. Meaning, whether or not she finds favor in your eyes, there's no bearing. Because she committed adultery, you have to divorce her. That's what it should have written. Listen to another way of understanding the verse. V'haya, it will be that if she does not find favor in your eyes, that if you don't have a relationship with your spouse, that you find chen, we'll define what chen means, that you find there's something special, there's something unique, that you find favor, you know what's going to happen? It's going to lead to infidelity. That's how you can read the verse. I mean, the verse is telling you that if you want to ensure that you're going to have a successful marriage, that requires that the husband is motzechein, that the woman is motzechein in the eye of the husband, that he sees her as something special. If he doesn't see her as something special, he doesn't give her the feeling that she is special to him, she's not going to feel fulfilled from that marriage. What that can lead to, what inevitably it's going to lead to, her not finding fulfillment within the marriage, fortunately that could lead to situations where she needs fulfillment in other areas. It's a different understanding. Now we understand it's defining for us what marriage has to be. If marriage has to be that the woman is motza chen be'enav. And I think it goes both ways. But what does that mean? I was thinking about it this morning. The word chen, right? Chen means grace. Chen means something that's almost very hard to identify. How do you define someone having chen? Charm. But I think what chen comes, actually, the shorish of it is from the word chinam. What does the word chinam mean? Chinam means something that's free. That's something that's gifted. A husband has to see his wife as a gift. He has to feel that this is a gift. God has gifted me, this woman. She has something, she's offering me something that I would not have been able to have without. If a woman feels that the husband feels that way about him, that's the key to a successful marriage. If the feeling is that you're offering me nothing special, then the woman's going to need fulfillment in other ways. How did my Rosh Shiva say this, which I think is an unbelievable idea? You know, we understand the concept of marriage, actually, is that the Talmud says that God created man, he said he created Adam and Chava, and they became an Adam. Talmud learns Adam, the word Adam, is only when you have the combination of man and woman together. If a man is not married to a woman, he's not yet an Adam. Adam, the concept of Adam is man. That's why they were actually, the Talmud learns, man and woman actually were cremated like hermaphrodites. They were originally one unit, and then they were split. And man has to get back together again, because man is only complete, and the woman is only complete when they are together. That's all these medrashim, when it says that there's a soul that gets divided into two, and then the soul finds. It's all the same idea, that the man is not an Adam. There has to be that hashlama, that completion. That's the gift that God has given us to complete ourselves. Adam HaRishon, the complaint against him is that when he sinned, what did he do? Ha'isha shenasatvi. God, you gave me this woman, it's your fault. Meaning not appreciating the spouse. That's what the complaint. That was the biggest aveira that he did. Even more than he didn't listen, he was not makir tov. He did not appreciate. It was a kafui tov. He did not appreciate the fact that God had given him this spouse. Because that spouse is what completes us into becoming an Adam. Without having that unit of man and woman together, then we're not complete as an Adam. We don't have that Adam concept. But in order to have that, you have to appreciate that's what you have. You have to appreciate, God has been giving me this, you have to be matzeh chen be'enav. Imlo, if it's not, v'haya, you can be sure. Imlo matzeh chen be'enav, if you don't find that what God has given you is this special gift, this chen, they don't see it. Then the next part of the pasuk says you'll find ervat davar and you'll get divorced. That's an incredibly important aspect. So my Rosh Shiva used to say, he said, you see, the idea is that true fulfillment comes when a man and woman are together as one. He says that's why, have you ever had a hand, let's say, does the foot ever complain that the hand is putting on tefillin and the foot doesn't? The foot doesn't put on the tefillin, the hand does. So why isn't the foot complaining? The hand doesn't, The mouth is eating the matzah, the hand is not. So why isn't the hand upset that the mouth eats the matzah? Obviously that's ridiculous. Why? Because it's one unit. One unit, the mouth eating is like the hand eating. The hand putting on tefillin is like the foot eating. He says, the idea that we have that women today are feeling second-class citizens. Why does the man do this mitzvah? The woman does that. The man does this mitzvah. And they feel the need to do these things that the man is coming from the lack of recognition that whatever the man does, the woman does. Whatever the woman does, the man is doing. That's that one unit. If you have that sense of fulfillment, that each one is fulfilled by what the other one is doing, you don't have that lack. The reason we have that lack and we feel need to find fulfillment in other areas because we don't have that fulfillment from doing these things together. Very, very important point. Right? Not to say that there's not situations where, we find certain great women put on tefillin or whatever. We find certain things that there could be that if the motivation is that they want to get a higher aliyah that they feel they can't get. It could be, might be, there's no situation, but if it's coming because they're feeling the lack, that only the husband's doing it, not the wife is doing it, it comes from the lack of understanding. It's like the foot complaining against the hand. It was the Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, was my Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. He used to go to the doctor with his wife, because she had, let's say, pain in her foot. He used to say, our foot hurts. So you speak, our foot hurts. Because her pain is your pain. The one unit. But you have to appreciate that is, you are imperfect until you get that completion. That until you see that God has gifted you with something that you would not have had that makes you perfect, that's the spouse. If you don't appreciate that, that means you lo matza chen be'enav. You don't have that, if you don't feel that. We know that Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai, it says that God put the mountain over our heads. It was actually a chuppah. It was a marriage. The consummation of that marriage occurs when the Jewish people are entering into the land of Israel. That's the entering into the land of Israel. That's the consummation. That's getting into the intimate part of the relationship. We can only really have that true intimacy in the land of Israel. It's really, that's the idea. Talmud is full of, replete with psukim, that we have that special spiritual connection, that, right? But in order to have that higher level relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have to complete ourselves as an Adam. Meaning, on a microcosmic level, we need to have shalom bayis, we have to have successful marriages, we have to complete ourselves, right? As it says, ish v'isha, right? The Talmud says that the words ish and isha, they combine the words aleph shin, which is esh, is fire. The ish has a yud, and the woman has a hey. That's ka, that's God's name. If there's shalom bayis, then shechina is b'neihem, God rests with them. God, if there's no shalom bayis, then God doesn't rest there, and you have fire. And you have, so it means that every successful marriage is really, it's man completing himself, and then God bonds with us. But it means you have to have the sense of that shalom bayis that allows God into our homes, God into our lives. So it makes sense now that when we're crossing over into Eretz Yisrael, we want to get that intimacy, we want to get that close level. Well, we have to make sure that our own backyards are okay. Our marriage is okay to get to that next level. Therefore, the blessings and the curses are all focusing on being faithful to one's spouse, adultery, what the punishments are. It's all focusing on that, because we can only take that next leap, that transcendence to that relationship with God, if we've completed ourselves as Adam, if our own homes are in place. That's why, that's the message going into Eretz Yisrael, is a marriage message. But I think that on the microcosmic level, I think that's very, very important. It's something that we just, and it's so easy to fall into the day-to-day aspects of our lives, and there's so many things that are sidetracking us that you start taking things for granted. And that which should be our greatest gift is the spouse that we have because of God, we can take for granted. And the impact of it is not feeling that I am special. Not feeling that I'm special has such a devastating impact. Like, I don't matter. I'm just like another part of the accessory. It's something I think we need to work on, just in terms of our success for marriage. And again, there's many different reasons why people commit adultery, but the Torah is telling us one of the primary reasons is because the person is not made to feel special within the relationship that they're in. That's something that can be worked on and should be worked on. But that's just on the microcosmic level. To get to the next level, we all want that closeness with God. we all want to have that intimacy, that communion, that next level of feeling spiritual and connected. It starts with us sensing and appreciating the spouse that God gave us, creating shalom bayis in our homes that allows God to enter into our homes, and then, please God, then we can have that transcendence to the next level and become more spiritual. I think it's a wonderful message going into Rosh Hashanah as well, because Rosh Hashanah we want that relationship with God. The message is, okay, take care of your own backyard first, then you can have that relationship with me.